We are now going to be interviewing Colgate basketball coach Matt Langel. What's going on, Coach?
A lot is going on, but I appreciate you guys having me for this time period here.
Absolutely. How are your family doing with this pandemic?
I feel very fortunate. All three of my children have all four of their grandparents alive, and it's a significant part of their life. So although they're in their 70s and they haven't been able to spend time here over the last weeks, everybody is healthy and safe. And again, I feel very blessed to be a part of a community like Colgate where we have space to be able to, follow protocol, but continue to live our lives in a somewhat normal day-to-day capacity with homeschooling for our children and what have you.
That's great. Have you been watching? Did you watch The Last Dance on ESPN? Netflix was sponsoring it. What did you think about the '98 Bulls and the information they really gave us that we didn't know about the Chicago Bulls in 1998?
Well, I have a slightly unique perspective when it comes to the Chicago Bulls for a few reasons. Well, number one is my father represents Doug Collins. So, as a young child, when he was a young head coach for the Chicago Bulls, and I think it got some airtime there, obviously, before they became the Chicago Bulls that we know now. I was fortunate enough to go to the games when they were in Philadelphia, and had a chance to meet Michael Jordan, but heard a lot of as I got older, some of the behind the scenes stuff that this showed the world. So obviously they became arguably the best team and franchise and organization ever. It was certainly, as we all we're in our homes, and for those of us who love basketball like we do, but I really think all competitive people, and certainly, as we've talked as coaches in a variety of different sports, I think it was, a welcomed relief and entertainment, but also education as to some of what went into making that time period so special, and that team so special.
We are talking and interviewing Colgate basketball coach Matt Langel. So, Matt, Colgate is a very prestige school, a collegiate school, a very well-known school, and their school academically is very well known. Tell us a little bit about the school and the growth of their sports and directing, where the basketball team is going in the future.
Yeah, thanks. Colgate, most people across the world, when they first think of Colgate, it's the toothpaste and not the school of higher education. But when it comes to higher education, Colgate over the course of our 200 years of existence has built itself into one of the premier liberal arts institutions in the world. So in that, we're just shy of 3,000 students located in upstate New York, about an hour southeast of Syracuse, on what gets rated as one of the most, if not the number one most beautiful campuses in the country. And academics, like you mentioned, is a priority. I mean, I think the average, our dean of admissions might have me being lowballing this a little bit, but the average, student is like close to 1,400 SAT score, getting into Colgate. So you're talking about an elite academic institution, where you get a hands-on education, because the classrooms, it's not a major research school. So the classroom isn't you never have a class with 200 people. It's, face-to-face education, which, then you get to a lot of question and answering, and are asked to think critically. When it comes to sports, we have a couple sports that have historically really performed well. Our football program over decades has been, very strong. I even played for what was then 1AA, but is, now what is FCS National Championship. We've had very strong men's and women's ice hockey programs. And before, recent times when it came to basketball, Colgate really hung its hat on a Donald Foyle. I don't know if you guys are are old enough to remember the mid 90s, but
Item.
he was a McDonald's All-American
Mm-hmm.
who, had this fascinating story, who, he was brought into the country from the Caribbean by two Colgate professors, and he ended up living with them in Hamilton, New York. And his final three schools, I think, were Syracuse, Duke, and Colgate, and he chose Colgate. And so, he led Colgate basketball to the NCAA tournament. And then, not this past season, but the season before, we were able to get back there for the first time in 25 years. And, I've had set school records each of the last 3 years for wins in a season. And, I think the guys that we've been able to coach have positioned the program really well moving forward, that, we can continue to hopefully compete for Patriot League championships, as we get back to playing basketball.
Talk about that tournament game last year. You guys hung tough with a very good Tennessee team, a Tennessee team that a lot of people were picking to win the national title last year. You were, I think, down as much as little as 3. You were really doing well coming back in the second half in that game. So what was that experience like with the tournament game, and what does that show about really the growth of your program as a whole, hanging tough with a team like Tennessee?
Yeah, thanks for that. It was an incredible experience, and it's what, as a coach, I was lucky enough as a player to, experience going to the NCAA tournament 2 times in my junior and senior year at the University of Pennsylvania. And then as an assistant coach, in 6, I think it was 6 of my 7 seasons as an assistant coach, I was fortunate enough to do that. So it is just amazing for the student athletes. You work so hard for so long. To be a part of that environment is incredible, where the country's spotlight is on you, and the interviews and the hard work and the opportunity to be a part of something as significant as that tournament is never taken for granted. And then to have the game that we did, I mean, Jordan Burns, who was in a sophomore season at the time, I mean, he just was spectacular scoring the ball. He had 32, and we were able to put the pressure on Tennessee because, to be honest, we had nothing to lose, and played some zone, and they were terrifically coached by Coach Barnes, and poised, and didn't panic by any means, and ultimately made a couple of huge 3-point shots to kind of get them over the hump and end our season and our dream. But just again, the environment, we were lucky enough to be in Columbus, Ohio, which was a fantastic city for the tournament. The crowd was a sellout crowd, and obviously, as the Cinderella story, as the Iowa fans and Cincinnati fans who were also in attendance in that pod or whatever were, they were certainly rooting for us. So it was really neat for our guys to have a sold out crowd and to be in a close game with, so many people, erupting and hanging on their seats for every chance. It's really what college athletics is all about.
Now, Coach, we've asked a ton of coaches the last week and a half about the recruitment. And you go into a house and you talk to a family and you talk to the kid and you tell them a little bit about Colgate and the academics, and we expect you to be at a prestige grade point average. What is it like sitting in front of a family and telling them a little bit about the school and telling them about the basketball program, and how do you sell them about Colgate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that, a lot of times when it comes to recruiting in Division I men's basketball, there's only 350 some odd programs in the country. So, those in charge of these institutions, they wouldn't hire people who weren't good in sales, because that's really what recruiting is. And I feel really lucky, and our staff feels fortunate that we're able to wear Colgate across our chest when we go into those rooms to have those conversations, because, whoever it was sitting in our seats has a world-renowned product to sell, and that's just in terms of education. So we talk a lot about that, because at some point in time, no matter if you're Michael Jordan or LeBron James or one of our players at Colgate, the ball is going to stop bouncing, and you're going to have to do things for years to come. So to surround yourself with excellence in the classroom every day is only going to push you to your limits and engage you with a network that are going to be leaders and success stories in whatever they do. When it comes to basketball, we're going into our 10th season now at Colgate, and the game of basketball has taken me all over the globe. I was able to play a little bit professionally in Europe when I was done playing, and it's introduced me to great people and formed great relationships. But we need guys who aren't just about that academics and looking to parlay their degree into a great career. We need guys who love the game, and so we really talk about what our players have been able to achieve and accomplish individually and collectively with professional opportunities and individual accolades. And really at the end of the day, though, it's now that we've won a regular season and a conference tournament championship and another regular season championship. It's being a part of a championship program, because when you're having fun with what you're doing and finding success, it makes every other aspect of your life more enjoyable. So those are some of the things we talk about. Obviously the fit has to be right. If you're looking for a big city and a lot of stuff going on, Hamilton, New York, where we're located, certainly isn't that, but it's a wonderful college town where, you can, make your own mark and be a part of something special.
Your team this season actually had a top 50 offense in the entire nation, and all top 5 starters all on your team, top 5 scorers, my bad, all had double-digit points. Talk about their performances this season and also your points of emphasis as a coach to make the offense the way it has been.
Well, I'd like to think that anything had to do with the offense and the coaching, but the reality is the reason that our offense was and our team was as successful as it was this past season is certainly the players. We have a handful of really talented guys. We have a lot of talented guys. It just so happens that, those 5 guys really differentiated themselves, and it was hard to take them off the court as a coach. Jordan Burns, who, completed his junior year for us, led us in scoring, and I think also led us in assists. Rapolis Ivanauskas, who will graduate, and Will Raymond, who were seniors, were, anchored the front court, and Nellie Cummings and Tucker Richardson, who Tucker was just in his second season. Nellie also in his second season of eligibility. We're really dynamic players, and I think what I'm most proud of about those guys is not just the points that they scored, but how many more points they could have scored. If that makes any sense. Jack Ferguson, who came off the bench as our 6th man, he could have easily averaged double figures on many other teams, but their commitment to winning and I think our assist percentages were really high, and part of what made our offense really effective was the fact that they bought into team over self, and we're really committed to sharing and celebrating one another's success. And as a coach, that's you're really kind of like a kid in a candy store when you're able to coach guys like that on a daily basis.